The film begins on a rainy night on the road, along which a van is racing, attracting the attention of the police. Having stopped the unit, the officers find a shabby-looking girl behind the wheel, who forgot her driver's license in a different dress. She does not respond to the offer to get out, and the body turns out to be full of dogs. The phone call will be from Evelyn's psychiatrist. The interlocutor makes an offer that cannot be refused to show up for work. Having handed over the child to the grandmother under the supervision, Evelyn goes to the police station to conduct an examination of the detainee. The patient turns out to be the driver of the van, smoking a window from a wheelchair. A fresh wound is visible on her back. When the suspect turns around, it becomes clear that this is not a woman, but a man in makeup and a wig. Evelyn explains that her task is to determine what to do with him. The detainee introduces himself as Douglas. When asked about the presence of children, he says that he has hundreds of them, meaning dogs. To explain where his affection for animals comes from, Douglas dives into visualized flashbacks of his childhood. He grew up in a family of a typical religious redneck who raised dogs to fight. His dad was a totalitarian and sadistic person. His older brother has similar habits, plus his intelligence is not visible. And his mother, although she loved her younger brother, had no say in the matter. They were not electing a president. Little Douglas, just like Tommy nicknamed Boobs, loved dogs. He secretly fed them, despite the prohibitions of his father, who needed hungry and angry dogs. Having learned from his elder brother that Douglas is breaking the ban, his dad decides to use radical educational methods. He locks the boy in a cage with dogs, since they are dearer to him than his own father. The furry friends warm their new comrade, covering him with their own furry bodies. Soon, the mother runs away from the hospitable home, being pregnant. She wants to raise a new child in normal conditions. As a last gift, she gives Douglas, who is constantly living in a cage, some kids of food, so the boy survived the winter without even trying to escape. He had nowhere to go anyway. Evelyn returns home in the morning, where she learns from her mother that her ex, who is prohibited by the court from approaching, is hanging around the area, wanting to see his son. Douglas indulges in memories at the station. One day, his brother hung a sign on the cage that read "DogMan" from the inside. Shortly before his arrest, he was visited by a teenager, Juan, who brought a puppy thrown out into the street. Juan asks for help. Marta, the owner of a local laundry, is protected by a gang of a certain Aliur Dugo, taking away not only all the profits, but also forcing her to sell her own things. Douglas promises to help. Dressed as a woman in a black morning dress, he follows Aliur Dugo. A bandit arrives at a bar where his gang hangs out. At Douglas's command, a small dog slips in with a phone in its mouth. It takes it to the leader, jumping on the table, and he makes a call. Curiosity gets the better of it. Aliur Dugo picks up the phone. Douglas, while giving a command to a larger dog, makes the criminal an offer he can't refuse. He will leave Martha alone, and in exchange, he won't show him the trick of biting off eggs. With no alternative, he agrees. The first dog, having received the phone, runs away, and the second one rushes after it. The leader tells his subordinates to follow the four-legged creatures, but they have already run away. Evelyn, arguing on the phone with her ex about not approaching the house, visits Douglas's home, which resembles a war zone. There are bullet holes everywhere. Taking his things, the woman returns to the cell to find out the rest of the story and make a final verdict. The first thing the psychiatrist wants to know is how he served his first sentence as a juvenile in his father's dog shelter. One day, his brother noticed the puppies he was hiding and told his father. When his dad came out with a gun, the boy blocked the way to the cage. Growling at him, the dogs joined the rebellion, gnawing at the bars. In the process, his father accidentally fires the gun, knocking Douglas down. The older brother takes his father into the house and throws a handkerchief for the younger one to bandage the finger he shot off. When he leaves after saying a prayer, little Douglas comes up with a plan. He puts the finger he shot off in a bag and tells one of the dogs to take it to a police car, like the one on the cover of the magazine. The dog crawls out of the hole he gnawed earlier and runs away. She hangs around the streets for a long time before she finds the car she's looking for and, jumping on the hood, puts the bag with the finger. The officers quickly call their colleagues to take part in an exciting game of put the boy together. They break into the house, arrest the father and the eldest son, and then call an ambulance for the child locked in a cage. That day, Douglas lost the ability to walk normally. The bullet that took his finger from a ricochet off the wall got stuck in his spine. Doctors did not risk pulling it out so as not to damage the spinal cord. Now every step can display replace the stuck bullet and become literally the last. As a result, the father was sentenced to 20 years. He committed suicide 2 weeks after the arrest. The brother was sentenced to 12 years, but was released early for good behavior after 8. One of the dogs waited for him near the prison and then chased him down the street. The furry chase gradually increased in size until it drove him into a dead end. They rushed at him, and Douglas endured the injury, never telling how he died. According to the law, Evelyn must report if she learns of a murder in which a patient is involved. After being released from the nursery, Douglas ended up in an orphanage where he was unable to make friends. Children are less friendly than dogs, and no one wanted to play with a disabled person. But the boy met the librarian Selma, with whom he fell in love at first sight. The girl addicted him to reading Shakespeare and performing in a theater group where they staged plays by the British classic. Selma also taught him to use makeup, cosmetics, and disguise to transform into other people. Performances on the stage made little Douglas happy and moderately popular. Soon Selma left the orphanage, going to perform on Broadway. Douglas collected newspaper clippings about her successes in an album. Already as an adult, he attended her performance, and after the show, he went backstage to talk to her in person. To his surprise, Selma recognized him and was happy to see him. Douglas handed me the album with which he followed her career. The gift touches the girl, after which a man enters the dressing room, the director of the performance, and also Selma's husband and the future father of her child. Stunned by the news, the guest says goodbye and goes home to the dog shelter where he works. Desperate from the realization that he will not be happy with his first love, Douglas releases his anger in a flash of rage, for which he even gets to his feet. The dogs in the enclosures echo with barking and howling, simultaneously showing ingenuity to open the cages. The animals surround the fallen Guyan, like they did in childhood, warm him with their bodies, licking his face in a feat of inhuman, pure and sincere love. Douglas acts like a real woman with a broken heart, cutting her hair shorter. But troubles never come alone. The authorities want to close the shelter in order to save money. Douglas reminds the City Hall representatives that the shelter lives on donations, and the only municipal funding they have is for the buildings. But this is where the problem lies. They want to transfer the site to a developer in order to make money. The guy is given until Monday to get out. Over the weekend, Douglas moved to an abandoned laboratory of a local college along with all the pets, where he carefully read Shakespeare to them. However, to feed so many hungry mouths, money is needed. He is looking for a job, but he is politely refused everywhere. No one needs a wheelchair user. One day, having ended up in cabarets for one vacancy, Douglas notices a rehearsal of singing travesties, men in women's suits, shedding a stingy nostalgic tear for the stage of the orphanage. The guy offers himself as a performer. The owner is skeptical about the idea, but Douglas, to dispel doubts, gets up from his wheelchair. He can perform standing up without spoiling the visitor's mood with an unhealthy look. A group of made-up singers asks for the guy in chorus, and the boss, giving in, gives the go-ahead. Soon Douglas is putting on makeup in the dressing room, preparing for his debut. Colleagues support him, roll him out to the middle of the stage, and help him stand up, so that when the curtain rises, he appears in all his glory in front of the microphone. Douglas performs a French song exemplarily, as if he not only studied Shakespeare as a child, but also took vocal lessons and studied the language of Dumas. The delighted colleagues do not immediately realize, after the number, to close the curtain and roll out a chair for the tired artist. Having made sure that the newcomer has coped, the owner includes him in the Friday program. Evelyn clarifies what else he did besides his career as a singer. Douglas admits that he helped people solve security problems by choosing suitable pets. He says that the dogs obeyed him unquestioningly and understood perfectly. Having discovered this amazing gift, Douglas began to use dogs to expropriate the working people's wealth acquired by exploiters. In other words, he taught the dogs to steal jewelry from the houses of the rich. Having found a loophole, the four-legged friends climbed inside and rummaged the space for something tasty and healthy. The latter meant something that could be carried away in the teeth. Such disrespect for private property attracts the interest of the insurance company, which is obliged to compensate for the theft. To get to the bottom of one victim, insurance investigator Ackerman is sent. After questioning the owner and wondering why the guard dogs did not bark, he takes the hard drive with the Court V footage and goes to watch it. Sitting in front of the monitors, they deliberately rewind the footage back and forth until they notice a small dog flashing by. It enters the territory, plays with the dogs guarding the house, then climbs into the house and pulls out a necklace. Remembering a similar case, Ackerman asks to see the footage from the street cameras. Long and painstaking work is rewarded. They see the same dog. Ackerman finds a video of a parked van where a dog runs and which is driven by someone in a wheelchair. Having calculated the license plate, the investigator finds the culprit, but is in no hurry to give up. Instead, admiring the talent, he goes to the club where Douglas is performing in disguise. After the performance, Ackerman comes into the dressing room to thank the singer and invite him to dinner. Douglas politely refuses, believing that he is dealing with an ordinary pervert. He does not realize that the insurer is watching him all the way home, after which he enters the territory. What Ackerman himself does not know is about the security cameras. Douglas commands the pets to prepare for a meeting with a guest, who threatens the owner with a gun, revealing his true nature. He needs the stolen jewelry to enrich himself personally. Douglas calls the cat from the safe in the closet, where the box with the stolen goods lies. Ackerman is about to leave, but the owner offers to stay for dinner. He ate the dog while cooking. The investigator agrees, not suspecting that he will become the main course for a dozen dogs, though, having surrounded him on command, rush at the man. The story doesn't end there. One Friday, when Douglas was dressing up as Marilyn Monroe for a performance, Oliver Dugo's bandits broke into the hideout. They figured out Juan and tortured him into handing over Marta's protector from the laundry. Arriving at the scene, the leader kills the poor teenager, and his thugs disperse throughout the building. Hearing a shot, Douglas gives the dogs the command war and arms himself with a shotgun. The cunning dogs lure the intruders into prepared traps. One was fried in a puddle by a live wire. Another was simply mauled. Someone fell into a covered pit trap. Someone was pushed into it by a jump, and someone got caught in a trap. Steadily overcoming the pain, Douglas gets up from the wheelchair to keep up with his comrades. He stuffs corpses with a shotgun, finishing off the wounded in the pit and shooting through the walls. The number of bandits inexorably decreases, but the latter manage to start a shootout. That's when the guy gets wounded. Under fire, Douglas crawls away, while Oliver Dugo arms himself with a machine gun and continues to crumble the walls into dust. The boss chases Douglas through empty corridors and finds him sitting in a chair with smeared, flowing makeup, and the artist turns on hysterics. The criminal pulls the trigger, but there are no bullets. Douglas raises his glass, getting the command to the dogs, and they rush at the intruder. Later, smoking in the back of a police car, the man tells the officers that the dogs are his children. Would they not? He gives them the command, and they rush out of the back of the truck in all directions. The story returns to the camera. Evelyn says she has no questions left except for the last one. Why did he open up to her? He says they are united by pain. As he leaves the station, the psychiatrist does not notice the dog on duty opposite, which howls together the others. As soon as the woman leaves, Douglas smokes and smiles, then shaves and changes into a suit. At this time, the animals enter the station and frighten the duty officers, causing him to fall. Losing consciousness, having squeezed the keys from the body, they bring them under the door of the owner's cell. Douglas leaves the cell into the foyer and sees the rising sun directly above the church opposite. He gets up from his chair and staggers outside to the church, stopping in the shadow of the cross. The man addresses God, saying that he stands for his glory and that he is ready. A few moments later, Douglas falls, breathing his last. The stuck bullet finished what he started. Only dozens of soldiers surround his body, saying goodbye. At this time, Evelyn, nursing a child, looks out the window. She sees a dog lying in front of the house. The last greeting from Douglas, called